Well, it's an old Johannesburg hospital lying in limbo, as Chap said, but the Gauteng Health Department has vowed to wake Charlotte Maxeke Hospital from its coma. Masego Rahlaga has the latest and will brief us as soon as she has info. Masego, what do you know so far?
Good morning, Annika. We haven't started the briefing yet, so we don't really know what the Premier or the Health MEC are going to tell us here today. So the information that we have is the information that has already been in the media, exactly what Tufts has already said in his intro to the story. Basically, we know that yesterday marked exactly 10 months since that fire here at Charlotte Maxeke Academic Hospital. We know that the only unit that is operational is the oncology unit, and it's not really performing to its full capacity. The doctors there have said that they already have a backlog of about 2,000 patients. We know that patients who would ordinarily come to Charlotte Maxeke have been asked to go to your Steve Biko, your Helen Joseph, as well as your Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital, which are spread across various parts of Johannesburg and Pretoria. So you can imagine for some patients, going to a hospital like Steve Biko from Johannesburg is going to also cost them some money. We know, as Tafuma said, that it was taken over, the maintenance of the hospital has been taken over by the Gauteng Health Department. It was previously under MEC Tasneem Mutara as the MEC for Infrastructure Development, but it's obviously taken the hospital way too long to be able to actually come into full function. It's a very important hospital, especially because we don't have a lot of hospitals across South Africa actually that deal with cancer patients. So this was a very important hospital with regards to that. At some point, Annika, as you remember, we had many different variants of the COVID-19, and that meant that the Charlotte Maxeke being out meant that patients had to flock to other hospitals, which meant that it also put external pressure, more pressure rather, on those particular hospitals that are supposed to take the patients from here. But I can tell you one thing, Annika, definitely the Premier of Gauteng, David Makhura, as he prepares his State of the Province address, will have to make mention of this hospital. He'll have to tell us what exactly it is that they're going to do, what has taken so long, what he expects his MECs to do in order to make sure that this hospital reopens. He'll definitely make mention of any corruption that might have taken place. There's been various investigations, so we're expecting that they might at least give us an update on what those investigations have come to. We know, Annika, that we still don't know what caused the fire. All we know is that it came from the medicine part of the hospital, and by medicine I don't mean your pills and stuff like that, but definitely where PPE would be stored. So that, of course, made a lot of people suspicious, understandably, especially with the province of Gauteng. So we'll find out from the Premier and the MEC, the different MECs today, exactly how far we are with this 1,088 capacity hospital that's been out of function for 10 months now.
Masego, it's 10 months on and 30% of the hospital is still not open, and that includes casualty, ICU, cardiothoracic and psychiatric. Oncology has reopened, but doctors are desperate from hospitals like Helen Joseph and surrounds because they say they're just not coping with the overflow. It's just too many patients are missing out on critical care.
Yes, Annika, and that's what I was alluding to earlier when I mentioned that these are the hospitals that patients have been told to go to. For instance, your Helen Joseph Hospital, your Chris Hani Baragwanath Academic Hospital, as well as your Steve Biko. The last two that I mentioned are also very huge hospitals, not only in South Africa, but in the African continent. We know that the health department in South Africa was already overburdened. So with Charlotte Maxeke not functioning, it means that other hospitals are under pressure. You'd see in the media some doctors, for instance, from Helen Joseph, saying the number of people that need care at their emergency wards have increased by 500%. And of course, we know already, the health fraternity, is particularly public health, has already, it already has a huge burden because of the number of people who have medical aid versus the number of people who don't. So people who rely on our public health system are way more than those who can afford private health. So a hospital like Charlotte Maxeke, was very important, especially in the fight, for instance, against COVID, in the fight for cancer. You can imagine, Annika, already before the hospital was closed and before the oncology unit could reopen, they already had a huge backlog of cancer patients, not only here at Charlotte Maxeke, but other hospitals as well. So during the time that oncology was still closed and cancer patients had to go to other hospitals, it meant those hospitals now have more pressure. And even though the oncology unit did reopen, Annika, it didn't really reopen to its full capacity immediately. It was all phased out, which meant that there were other cancer patients that could not be seen at Charlotte Maxeke, and that also just meant that besides the pressure that it gives to the other hospitals that patients have been referred to, it's also about the patients. I remember I spoke to a cancer patient who was on stage 4 colon cancer and was HIV positive. She lives, for instance, around the city of Johannesburg, so Charlotte Maxeke was a convenience for her. She would be able to travel here only with one taxi. Now having to go to Steve Biko Hospital or Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital meant that she has to catch 2 or 3 taxis. So financially also, it's been a burden on the patients themselves.
Thank you so much, Masego, and we'll cross to that briefing live and hopefully get an update on what's happening with those critical units that are still not reopened.